Hi, and welcome to episode 40 of the Give Me a Crown Knitting, Spinning and Bits and Pieces podcast. Today is Sunday the 10th of July 2016 and my name's Nina, also known as Give Me a Crown on Ravelry, Instagram, Pinterest, and it's also the name of my Etsy shop. Today we are having the local knit along or craft along prize draw, so I'm very excited about that. I'll be doing that drawing towards the end of the episode, so just to keep you in a bit of suspense if you've been chattering along or putting in some finished objects, so stay tuned. This episode is going to have a little bit of all sorts of stuff, so I have some spinning, some knitting, some crochet and some yarn dyeing, as well as some acquisitions. So I hope you enjoy the show, whether you're a new or a returning viewer. So to start with my finished objects, I have a few. The first of which is my Corridale spinning. So this was some Corridale fibre that I got from Kathy's Fibres, and I showed it off last week, I think it was. And I did this with a short forward draw. I was aiming for a slightly thicker yarn, which I have managed to achieve. So this is 220 meters in 100 grams, and that makes it about a DK weight or so. I'm not entirely sure what to make with these yet. I've never knit with Corridale to my knowledge, so I'm not sure whether or not they'll make a good hat or something else. But I'd be interested to know if people have used Corridale, whether they find it itchy on the skin or anything. The other option might be to do a small shawl, but I'm just not sure about the meterage, whether or not that's going to really work for a shawl. So when I spun these up, I did 2 singles and then I just plied them together, and it was a fairly, it was a very soft spin. It was a very easy spin, so I wish that I had used some Corridale when I first started spinning, because I found it very, very easy to draft and to spin along. And the 2-ply yarn that I made was fairly sort of compact, but it was soft. I gave it a rinse, and I had to give it a couple of rinses because the water was actually washing through, sort of fairly mucky, and there was a very, very, very sheepy smell. But that's what you get with natural undyed fibres. And once it dried, it came out really, really puffy. So I think that's a sign that I didn't over spin it, over twist it, over ply it. It just sort of came out really nice and squishy and soft. So it does feel a little bit more dense than what it was just as a fibre, but I think it will wear well whatever I decide to do with it. I think I might need to start a spinning journal, because what I decided to do was I kept a little bit of the fibre. At the moment I've just popped it into a Ziploc bag, and it just says brown Corridale tops, and that's the label that was on the packet. And that's just to remind me sort of what the original fibre looks like. And yeah, I might need to start an actual spinning journal and pop that little bit of fibre into the spinning journal just for reference. But if I put tape over it, then I can't really sort of play with it, so maybe I should just tape the Ziploc bag into the journal, but that's something for me to play around with and see. Now my next finished object is this big bowl. So I've been doing some dyeing, and if you have been watching my previous episodes, I think it was late last year, the wonderful Meg Gadsby, who is a yarn dyer and knitwear designer and shawl designer, she gave me some dyes to play with, and she gave me a lot of dye, way more than I expected, and it was very, very generous of her. So I did a fair bit of dyeing before I left Sydney, and then I decided the other day, when it was very boring and rainy and dreary outside, that I needed a bit of colour in my life, and I opened my box of dye equipment and I decided to dye some yarn. So I was playing with some different techniques, and this was kind of the first and the last yarn that I dyed. So the first yarn that I dyed, I was trying to get really creative, and I ended up with green yarn. So if you've seen my previous episodes, you'll know that I had a tendency to just create green yarn. And I left it green when it all went muddy and weird. And then I washed it and put it to dry, and it was just bothering me. So as the last thing, I chucked it back in the pot. I put some blue dye with it, and it's actually turned out really, really pretty. So there are some sort of sea greeny blues in there, and some bits of purple and various colours in there along with the blue, and I think it's a really, really nice deep blue, so I'm very happy with that one. This was another blue that I was playing with, so it's just a very tonal blue with some speckles. This one is my favourite. So this is a light grey with a darker grey section with some speckles as well. I then did a pinky purpley skein, and then I decided to just go a little bit nuts with the colours and created this sort of speckles and blotches, and basically every colour went into here. This one has a bit more of a greeny pale sort of approach, and then this one had more reds, and again there's sort of all sorts of colours intermingling, and I'm really curious to see how this one's going to knit up, so I'm going to be playing with it soon. So the reason that I was doing those was that I wanted to create some minis. So these are the minis, and what I've done is I've created centre pull minis. These are all about 8 grams, and these are superwash merino, so they work great for sock yarn blankets and things. So the local knit along winners will be getting a couple of these in their prizes, and what I'll do with the others, because these dies were given to me, I feel like I should continue on with passing on the goodness of others onto other people. So if you order a medium project bag from my Etsy shop, then I'll pop in a few of these, because that's they're sent as a parcel at a parcel rate, or if you order 2 small project bags or something sort of equivalent, because then I pop it up into the parcel shipping category, and I can pop in a couple of these. So I'll also be possibly holding on to a few of these for the 1-year podiversary giveaway of some sort. I haven't actually figured it out what it is, but I think it's about a month away, so I'll hold on to a little selection of these for that. And of course I'll be putting some of these into my sock yarn blanket, so I think they're really cute. So yeah, so lots and lots of minis, and lots of fun doing a huge amount of dyeing. So I'm definitely now getting a feel for which kinds of colours I'm interested in buying when I buy some dyes at some point, and sort of getting a feel for the different types of techniques that I'm enjoying playing with. So I'm sure there'll be some more dyeing happening in the future. As for my works in progress, I have been working on my mustard and cable socks. So this is a project bag from the Craftfulness Etsy shop and podcast. So these are my 2 at a time socks. First time trying this, and I really should be looking more at tutorials, because I think I sort of stuffed up by trying to do the heels 2 at a time. So I was sort of doing 2 at a time up until the heel turn, and then I had to do 1 at a time just for this little section here. So it's a I kept the slip stitch patterning going on the heel because I find that that creates a nice squishy heel, and the cables are still going along. I am still thinking about when I will stop those, but I think I like the look of it, so I think I'm just going to keep the cable section going all the way to the toes. So I haven't worked on those as much as I expected to this week, but at least I'm past the heel, and now it's sort of just stockinette on the bottom and the cables on the top, and these have got the ribbing on the back because the cable on the front sort of squishes it in a fair bit, so that just sort of gives a little bit of room. They are a little bit tight on the foot when I've tried them on, but I think they'll be fine. I have also been working on, oops, sorry, dropped some yarn. I've also been working on a shawl, and this is in my brand new, wonderful, amazing project bag. So this is from Sew Sheepy, and I've seen her project bags on quite a few podcasts, and I've been watching her Etsy shop for a while, and I've been craving a cat. I'm very much a cat person, and it's been a very long time since I've had a cat, but we used to, when I was growing up, we'd either have a cat or we'd adopt a neighbourhood cat to look after. So I think living in a house again makes me feel that possibility of owning a cat, but until I get settled into my own place, then I think I just need to hold off. But I thought that this was a fantastic sort of midway point to getting a cat. I've been trying to figure out which one's my favourite cats. I love these Call for Cats. Oops, over here. I've been singing Call for Cats each time I sort of notice that one. And then I love this little kitty down here. It's just staring at me as I'm knitting. But this is a fantastic project bag. I'll show you the other things that Tammy, the wonderful lady behind Sew Sheepy, sent me in the acquisition segment. But this is a very sturdy, sort of a thick fabric, which means that it's going to last a very long time, and it has a white fabric on the inside. So in here, oh, and here's Tammy's card, Sew Sheepy. Addicted to knitting, sewing, spinning, yarn dyeing, project bags, stitch markers and podcasts, which is very sweet. So in here I have my Minamara shawl. So I mentioned at the end of last week's episode that I was thinking about casting this one on because I've had it in my library for a while, and it's by Meg Gadsby, who I mentioned earlier, who gave me those wonderful yarn dyes, and she gave me this shawl pattern as well, which was very, very sweet of her. So this is a lace shawl, and I'm knitting it from some Circus Tonic Handmade yarn. This is in the Revelry sock base, which is 80% merino, 20% nylon, and in the House Crow colourway. She's on holiday at the moment, and so I don't know whether or not this is a colourway that she's still making, because I ordered this a while ago now, probably 6 months ago, and as those who watch this podcast know, I love my greys and my browns, so this is a yarn that's been sitting around for a while, and it was meant to be going into a pullover, but I just haven't gotten around to knitting a pullover, and it's just so beautiful. So I decided I finally had to break into it, and I'll figure out the pullover yarns at some other point and order some other yarn, because that's fine, isn't it? So this yarn is amazing to work with. It's the first time that I've actually been using her yarn apart from in my sock yarn blanket, and my shawl is getting into a tangle. So this is where I'm up to with the shawl. I should have put some point protectors on my needles because I'm about to lose all my stitches, but it's a lace shawl, so it's going to be hard to sort of see what it's like until I get it off the needles and get it blocked, but it's got a beautiful lace patterning. And this yarn has got these amazing lighter flecks in there. I'm not sure if it's going to show up, but there are sort of some lighter areas, and it just makes my heart sing to see that in yarn, and it just gives it a bit of life, a little bit of interest. I don't know, I think it helps the light bounce off it or something like that, but I just think it's beautiful. So I'm loving the yarn, loving the pattern. It's definitely scratching my itch to knit some lace after all my cabley things recently. I'm using Knit Pro, I think they're Symphonies, just these interchangeables, and I have it on a very short cable at the moment because I think my longer cables are somewhere, and I'll swap it out once I get some more stitches on the needles. Due to the lace pattern, I'm using stitch markers to keep track of where each lace pattern is, but I'm starting to run out. At the moment I've got a bunch of Calico Miss stitch markers in there. I've got one from the Wonderwool shop that she sent me, and then I've got some random ones that I've made at various points in time with my Give Me a Crown colours. And yeah, so I'm starting to think whether or not I should put one marker between every 2 lace pattern repeats, and then that might mean that I'm not going to run out of stitch markers. And I think that's it for this project. So there's a fair bit still to go, but it's a one skein project, so it shouldn't take me too long. And after sort of getting through the first little section, it's been a lot easier to remember what I'm doing, so I just have to glance at the chart, and then at the start of the right side row, and then I can plow on for the rest of the row, and then the wrong side rows are all the same, so it's a fun, fairly mindless knit. So that's that project. I have also been crocheting on my doily that I showed last week. So this one is just something that I'm working on to send to my grandmother at some point. So it's grown to here. It's a basic sort of flower doily, and I'm using cotton for it. So I think it keeps going to about here. So I was guessing about 40 centimeters last week for the final sort of dimension. I think I might be right. Might be a little bit more, but it should be a nice little doily to put on her table. So that's that one. And oh, I forgot to mention. No, I'll finish off my works in progress first. So, my sock yarn blanket. I have added a couple of squares. So I added in a bit of hand spun. So this was one of the fondant fibre. This was one of the roll lags, I think. Yes, one of the roll lags that I spun up maybe 3 weeks ago, and I put that in there. This is a Miss Clack yarn that I used in my block socks, and this is the hand spun that the fondant fibres Deep and Meaningful that I used for my socks that I finished off last week. So there are 3 little squares added, a couple more to finish off this row, and then I've got plenty more rows to go. So yes, so the other thing that I forgot to mention when I was dyeing was some fibre. So this was some merino, might have been superwash merino, I think, yes. And it's the first time that I've dyed fibre, and I've sort of read about it here and there, but I haven't really paid that much attention. And because I just had a little bit of dye left, I pinched off a bit of white merino fibre that I had and just kind of blotched bits of the dye onto it. I let the dye sit on the fibre for a while before I put it into my pot, which had sort of warm but not boiling water. And I've no idea whether or not I've sort of overdone the heat on these, but I'll spin them up at some point soon just to sort of see how it worked out. They feel a bit dense, so I'm worried that I might have actually felted them, but we'll see. It should be fun to give it a whirl. So then I have some acquisitions. So I already showed the Girl Sew Sheepy project bag, but Tammy was really sweet, and she also included a note with the project bag, and we follow each other on Instagram and follow each other's shops and what have you. So she also sent me this. So it's a very cute little pouch with some chickens on it. She thought that it was suitable for the country girl in me now. So, and that has her label on it. And she also sent me some teas and a stitch marker. So now that I've shown that, I can pop that into my shawl. And she also sent me some minis, and these are absolutely my colours. So it was very thoughtful, and thank you, Tammy. You are a star. So these will be going into my blanket soon. So there's browns and greys in there, which are beautiful. And I think my favourites are this one. It's kind of dark blacky, browny, with little just hints of colour in there. So I don't know what it is, but it's gorgeous. And then also this brown one with bits of green and bluey purpley colours and what have you. And then I like this one, which is just grey. And then I like these. So very amazing and wonderful. Thank you. And so that was just very thoughtful and wonderful, and very exciting to receive. I also received a yarn order. So I probably should put all my things in front of me rather than behind me, because it gets a bit awkward. But anyway, so this was my first order from Skein Yarn. So Skein is up in Coffs Harbour on the coast, and I've been watching the podcast for ages. I think it might be one of the first podcasts that I sort of stumbled across, and I've been wanting to buy some Skein Yarn for a while, but her shop updates tend to disappear very quickly. But I snagged a few the other week, and so I got this, which is in the Uptown sock, which is 100% superwash merino in the pollen colourway. So it's got bits of yellow in it, and I think with all the dreary weather that we were having, I just needed a little bit of sunshine in my day, so I thought that this would be nice. I'm not entirely sure exactly what this is going to be yet. Yeah, not entirely sure. But the main reason I got it was because I wanted some yellow, and I know that I don't have enough yellow in my sock yarn blanket, so whatever I do, I'm going to make sure that I've got about 6 grams left to put into my blanket. This is the other one. So this is the Sahara colourway in top drawer sock, which is 85% superwash merino, 15% nylon, 437 yards or 400 meters. So the information's there. They're nice and soft, and I forgot to mention that this one's a a single ply. I'm not sure if I realised that when I ordered it. Yep, it's a single ply. Interesting. So yep, they came in Friday, I think, so still got some planning and thinking to do with those. So I have now made a mess next to me. I'll put a few things over here so they're out of the way. I have also popped by the local library and I joined up, and I didn't think to check the opening hours, so I managed to get there 15 minutes before the lunch break. So I sort of had to do a very quick run around, but I borrowed Itty Bitty Toys by Susan B. Anderson because I still need to figure out something for my cousin's soon-to-be baby. And I also borrowed this Aaron's Celtics, which admittedly the things in here are not really my kind of style. I'm not entirely sure what year this is from, but there's sort of some big chunky things. But I mainly got this to just have a look at some of the cabling and various things. So it's good to be part of the local library, and I had a look when I got home. I looked at the catalogue because it's a network of libraries in the area, and a few of the other libraries have got quite a few spinning books, so I'll be checking some of those out soon as well, so that I can play with my new flyer when it turns up. So that's pretty exciting. It should be here in about a week or so. And that's it for all that I've been working on, but I now have the local knit along drawing. So as part of the local knit along was to take a look at some of the local yarns and fibres and indie dyers and pattern designers in your own local area. So we had a lot of chatter going on, which was fantastic. People sharing what they were finding locally and what their experiences had been in the past with the local products and designs. So I knit this Maluka shawl with some Adagio Mills alpaca yarn that is spun locally, and I also, what else? I knit some socks with some hand spun that I had spun up myself, so even though the fibre was from overseas, I spun it and then knit it. So the knitting part of it was making something from a local product. And even though Melbourne is a fair way away, it's still sort of Australian local in a way, so I also knit a pullover and some socks with Miss Clack yarns. So I got a few projects done, which was good. We had 23 entries, and there were quite a few socks and shawls, as well as some other knitted items and some spinning. So they were all beautiful, and it was really fun hearing about sort of how people went about finding these local items and designs. So I did a draw from the finished objects thread from those 23 items, and to save the sort of me talking at Siri, I thought that I should just do that before I podcast. So the winning entry was number 19, which was Cola Girl, so congratulations Cola Girl. She had knit the Waiting for Rain shawl using white gum wool, which is an Australian yarn, so she is going to be getting these two balls of Adagio Mills, so they match. They're the same as mine. I loved using, that way. I loved using these. So this is a 4-ply alpaca yarn, fingering weight, approximately 160 meters in 50 grams, and the natural alpaca colors, and I think that they're beautiful and a lot of fun to work with. So congratulations Cola Girl. If you can send me a message on Ravelry to say that you've seen this episode and pop your address in there, then I'll get your prize over to you. There'll also be a few other little bits and pieces in there to celebrate the whole local thing. So I also drew from the chatter thread, so we had 187 posts in the chatter thread, which was fantastic. There was quite a bit of chatter from me in there, so that's part of the reason why I did the drawing beforehand, so that I didn't end up drawing myself too many times, because I've done that before if you're a returning viewer. So the winning post was number 154, which was jellybeansmamma, and congratulations. She has been a member of the Ravelry group for quite a while, so it's fantastic to see that she has won a prize. She was chatting about alpaca yarn, as it happens, and she has some alpaca fibre that she's been meaning to spin, and we were talking about some of the adagio yarns and other alpaca yarns, and she was asking about sort of whether or not there was some whether it was sort of tight to knit. I'm not putting it very well, but anyway, so there was some discussion around that, and it was one of her posts in that sort of discussion that won. So congratulations, jellybeansmamma. I dropped one of your yarn balls. So you have won these 2 balls of Clack and Country 8-ply. So these will make for a great hat or mittens or something like that. So I hope you enjoy knitting with these yarns. I've definitely enjoyed using them for beanies before. So if you can get in touch with me once you've seen this episode and pop in your address and let me know that you've won. Thank you to everyone who took part. It was a lot of fun to see what you were making and sort of getting involved in the chatter. If you didn't finish your projects, then those threads are now closed, but keep going and feel free to pop your sort of finished objects into the everyday chatter thread, and it would be great to see what you end up coming up with. And if you end up working on other local projects along the way, then please pop by and comment, because it's always fun to hear about sort of what people have access to, and also just becoming more aware of some of the other makers that are out there and suppliers. So yeah, I think we'll probably have another knit along in August to coincide with the 1-year podiversary, but I'm not entirely sure yet. I'm trying to sort of think about what prizes I could gather. If you have any ideas for a knit along or craft along, then please pop by the Ravelry group and make mention of it. I'm definitely thinking about a sort of a low-key spin along, because the spinning chatter thread has been getting a little bit of action since I opened it up recently, and it's fun to see what people are making. But sort of, I think a more encompassing knit along is more likely at some point soon. So I think the rest of this episode is just going to be chatter. So thank you very much for watching if you're not interested in that. This week I found a shop in the nearby town of Blaney, which is about 20 minutes drive away, and I was going and doing my shopping and decided to have a wander around the main street, and that's when I popped by the library, and one shop that I was walking past was closed, but I peered in and I could see some yarn in there, so I went back there yesterday, and it's the White Rock Silver shop. And White Rock Silver is a sort of a brand of jewellery and sort of silverware kind of stuff. I don't know how to describe it, but the person behind it makes a lot of stuff with silver. But there's also all sorts of other beautiful handmade goods in the shop, and they had some Clack and superfine yarn. They had the shade card. They didn't have any brown. Brown is kind of what I'm after at the moment, because I really want to knit a top. So I didn't end up buying anything, but the ladies in there were really, really wonderful to chat with, and I spent a while in there just blathering away about all sorts of stuff. So I'm definitely enjoying bumping into some of these shops and sort of meeting local people, and they're always being very helpful and sort of giving me tips about where I can find yarn and where I can find fabric and all sorts of things. So I'm definitely enjoying that side of sort of country life, and yeah, it's good. I also went driving around some of the local villages. So there's quite a few sort of just little villages. They might be 10 kilometres apart. This time of year isn't ideal for driving because there's potholes everywhere, and I ended up on some kind of muddy track at one point and thought I was about to bog the car. And anyway, it was beautiful. Things are looking very green because of all the recent rain. There are little lambs running around on lots of fields, and I really want to try to figure out some way to pop my phone onto my dashboard so that I could actually get some footage, because you sort of drive around corners and hills and suddenly there's just sheep everywhere. So it's very beautiful but very hard to stop, especially when the sides of the road are sort of muddy and boggy looking. I did stop in one little town, or one little village, and just took a little bit of scenery footage, so I'll pop that in at the end. And I don't think I've got any bird footage this week, but the birds have been popping back. The king parrots have been back, the rosellas have been back, and then there's some tiny little, I have no idea what kind of little birds they are, but they're cute and they don't seem to care at all that the much bigger parrots are there. They sort of hop around and feed, so I'll get some footage of them soon. But a neighbouring paddock has sort of, the sheep have been there and they've been baaing away, and I spotted them the other day because usually they're sort of far away and you can just sort of hear them in the distance, but they've been coming up closer to the fence, and they've got lots of little lambs, so I got a little bit of footage of them walking along the side of or on a hill in the paddock, and the little lambs are chasing. So there's quite a few new lambs in the neighbourhood, so it makes for interesting noises when you're out and about and wandering, and you just hear these little cries all the time. But I think it's beautiful. So I've been rabbiting on for a while, so I think I will finish up here. I will pop a couple of little videos in at the end, and I hope you're well. I hope you're crafting lots and lots and lots, and I'll see you soon.